Hello. On today's show, the return of Oh So Curious, the show, we're going to be talking about Spider-Verse. I believe we're talking about Transformers: Rise of the Beast, which is coming out next week. We'll talk about the WGA Strike, which might turn into soon. It turned into a SAG and DGA strike as well. But we'll start things off with talking about Spider-Man into the no, not into the Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, I always confuse those titles. All right, let's get the show up and running. Hi. How's everybody?
Hi.
So the
That
new
was
look.
exciting. Like the
Getting
whole
to see it
thing.
again.
I had shivers and yeah, mega.
Yeah,
really
I
liked it
got
then.
some jitters. I was like, oh no, it's 1, 3, 2, 1, and I had to count myself down. I'm not used to doing that. It's been like half a year,
When you
literally.
guys are off camera and you have to get back on camera, it's always like a second of like. I remember my first audition back after like a month and a half was like, oh no.
Yep, absolutely. Well, today we are kind of changing up the format. We haven't really done this show in a long time. So we figured when we bring it back, one of the things that we wanted to do was kind of simplify the format a little bit. We wanted to go from talking about like 6 different things and having all these intricate little formatting things to doing something that's more like a podcast. Like we want to have a good conversation. We want to focus on a couple of good topics and really just dive a little deeper into each one. So today we're going to be talking about 2 movies, and we're going to start off by talking about the movie that is brand new this weekend. It's making a lot of money. It's also making a lot of critics and audiences happy. It's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's the second of what is to be a trilogy. The first movie came out a few years ago. The third movie is set to come out next year. They've been working on the second and the third one kind of back to back. And now that the second one is out, it's a hit with critics, it's a hit with audiences. It's at least as good, according to people, as the first one, if not better. So let me put up this graphic here. We're going to review this movie, but the question I want to start off by asking you guys, right off the top, is this the best Spider-Man movie of all time? And first, I'm going to ask Max. What do you think?
Yes. I
Okay.
mean, after seeing the first one though, because up until watching the first one, like I wasn't quite sure which whether that would be the best one, but it was like after having seen the first. So was it Beyond the Spider-Verse?
Into Across Beyond.
There you go. Into Across Beyond. So Into the Spider-Verse was really, really good, and it raised the bar up there. But what I saw after watching it yesterday, I realized that they actually do know how to do a franchise. It gave me this Empire Strikes Back kind of nod in terms of that they took the franchise. They've managed to still be entertaining within this film through a bunch of references and memes, but then at the same time they still managed to make this film good, like on its own, and it works within the universe, within this franchise, and as a standalone movie. And I know Angelina has a completely different opinion to it. So what was wrong with it?
That being said, like I feel like to even get to the point that we are, the fact that Sony and Disney have really made a good deal to like move this franchise forward after Sony, the Tobey Maguire franchise did so well, but then after that we didn't hear from Spider-Man for a long time, and now Spider-Man sort of reintegrating with the Marvel universe. Like I feel like they've done just a really good job of taking Spider-Man and sort of evolving it. And also I do feel like they did a really good job on the metaverse, right? Like they did explain it well. It wasn't messy. It wasn't all over the place. They had a set plan. You could tell that it was really well thought out. And you could see all of these different fragments, because that's not like something little, right? That's like a huge ordeal. That was a lot of time. That was a lot of writers. That was a lot of time going into writing this script in a way that would make it all make sense. And so they did a really good job of that. I just thought the movie was way too long, and it didn't need to be that long. Like, I was like kind of excited for the movie to be over. I'm like, okay, please tell me we're going to stop soon. Like, it's just... I just feel like when you go into that much depth and that much detail, there were a lot of holes and there was a lot of filler that I don't think we needed, because it was already so much detail and it was already so much this. Like, I didn't know why they took time on certain things. Like, I don't think it was necessary.
I remember you mentioned that you haven't seen the first one, and I think that's maybe where you feel like there was just way too much through in there, because after seeing the first one, you sort of understand what they had to like kind of diverge into certain things. And I completely understand your point, because as I said before, like with the prologue, I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't, like, spoiler alert, I could not care less about Gwen's backstory, because I was here mainly for Miles Morales. But it was, at the same time, it was really nice to see her backstory and sort of understand her motives and why she can't go back home, etc., etc. It definitely like deepened the relationship we have with every single character, and like managed to like set the film straight. And open up the new chapters, sort of thing. Like it paid attention to the first one. It was like a film on its own, and then it made this nice transition into like the third one, or at least that's how I felt. I didn't just one more thing, that like I didn't feel like I was cheated of like a movie experience. Like I had a solid beginning, middle, and the end. I was able to see the relation to the first one. I was able to be deeply entertained, but there was just so much of it, and that's why I agree with you, like in a weird way. Like, it is a lot. It's a lot, but I personally didn't get sick of it. Yeah.
So maybe what I need to do is go back and rewatch the first one. Like, overall, I think it was a good movie. The reviews are saying it's a great movie, everybody. I feel like I am maybe one of the outsiders in this, and I feel like over the course of Oh So Curious, I am typically like a definitely go see this movie girl. I didn't feel that way about this movie. I mean, like, you can go see it. I don't care one way or the other. So it's like a little out of character for me to not like love a movie. I didn't love this movie. It was kind of whatever. But the reviews, the reviews are like popping. We've got like a 93% Rotten Tomato score, which compares to a 95% Rotten Tomato score on Into the what is it called? I'm like confused on all the names now. So the first one got a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. This one is a 93%. This movie is also slated to make $113 million by the end of the 3-day week opening, which is nearly as much as The Little Mermaid, and way more than they thought that they were going to make initially, which is incredible. I don't know, was your showing packed?
It was packed. But I also paid attention to the demographic, and there was no kids. I mean, it was Friday evening, but it was mainly 20, 30, like millennials, Gen Z, but not younger than that. Which was strange, because I maybe it's like, I mean, it is. It's more of an adult cartoon without having those jokes, but I think if you take a kid to see it, I don't think the kid will get a majority of it. And it might be actually even too much in terms of like the sensory experience. It's a lot on the eye.
That's a good point. Yeah, I was like, there's a lot going on, because each universe, which did they do this in the first movie? Did you realize that every sort of part of the metaverse, they had their own like graphics?
Yeah,
like,
their own
one
style.
had her own graphics.
Yeah.
Like Miles had his own graphics. I thought that was really brilliant. So
the juxtaposition between the sum of them, like I really like Gwen's kind of universe with the pinkish tones and stuff.
And changes
And then-
based on the mood, which reminds
Yeah.
me of the comics, which is really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially when they get to, transition and stuff. Like, I mean, we can agree, like, visually they outdid themselves. But that was actually also my thought. Like, very soon I was thinking, can you go bigger? And actually you can go bigger.
Yeah.
And it might have been a bit too much, like too overload of, like, I was depleted after watching this film. I went to sleep.
Not good. That was not good. No, what is so funny is I was actually thinking the same exact thing, and I went to go see it in the morning. I was supposed to go to the 9:15 a.m. showing, which I was surprised that there was one this early, probably to make room for the children.
Right.
I ended up going to the 10:15. There were no children in my showtime, like at all. And the grove was packed. So there were no kids. It was pretty packed. It was all essentially Gen Z millennial.
Have you seen any marketing? I mean, before Dan sort of pitched the idea of going to see this film, have you seen any marketing about it? Because I had no idea they were making the sequel. I was a big fan of the first one, but in terms of marketing, like, I had no idea.
If I have seen anything. That's a really
Yeah.
I don't think I might have seen maybe one thing on social media, but
Right.
I haven't seen anything. I didn't even think about that.
Because of the titles, I might have seen something, but I thought they were the same movie. I thought they were just like reusing the old stuff.
Well, that's also huge because The Little Mermaid obviously opened last weekend, and that marketing was all over the place.
Right.
And The Little Mermaid had like a record-breaking opening weekend, but that's nearly as much as Spider-Man. So the fact that Spider-Man has really come through without any marketing to sort of comparatively almost hit the numbers that The Little Mermaid did is pretty awesome. Critics are loving it. Even the critics.
What did they say?
So it's hard to follow up sorry guys, I'm like in your face. It's hard to follow up such a success, but Across the Spider-Verse, the second of a planned trilogy, takes the action and the story to the next level and may just be a superior film. What once seemed brain-bendingly original now seems over-familiar. Ooh.
Yeah, I can see that comment, actually. That's why I was a bit bored at times as well, but... one thing that I should actually mention before we move on is that I really liked how they managed to, I mentioned this, make a film stand on its own and then discuss Miles Morales kind of thing and his thing about Spider-Man. I don't want to get into spoilers, that's why I'm speaking gibberish like that. But then at the same time, they managed to sort of discuss like an overgoing issue and a destiny and a mission of a Spider-Man as a brand between as a story, because as we find out, Spider-Man doesn't have to be even like a person. It's it can be anything, and I thought it was really, really well done.
Sorry, did we do that whole Batman, like the Dark Knight thing? It's like in Batman Begins where he's like if I wear a mask, like I can become an idea, like, and by the end of that trilogy of movies, Batman is not just a person. It's like more of it's like an ideal to strive for.
It was more about also Spider-Man's kind of plots, how there's different stories addressing different characters or different emotions and different experiences that Spider-Man has to go through, and they've managed to take it all and discuss it in this film, which I thought was really clever.
I definitely have to agree with you there. Like the details of the metaverse and how they wove it all together is exceptional. They did a really good job.
Yeah.
I feel like Marvel was the first sort of overarching franchise to really create the metaverse as an overarching idea. And
you mean the multiverse or
multiverse? There you go. But you know what? You guys can't make fun of me. Like it is.
I know. I'm not trying to make fun. I just because the metaverse is like a whole.
I didn't even react to it, so don't worry.
Yeah, come on. But overall, like I feel like Marvel was the first real sort of overarching franchise to create this connectivity through all of these different films. And I feel like this takes it a step further, doing it within one sort of overarching Spider-Man ideal, as you guys call it. And I think that's a really good point. It's Spider-Man has become more of an ideal versus Spider-Man as one person. And I think they had to do that in order to make the franchise last. And I think it's a really good point to the sort of half-life of a superhero. You can't have one actor play a superhero because that actor ages. That actor can't keep going for that amount of time.
It's not even that, like, they literally undag every studio or every IP that has ever touched Spider-Man and arrived at this deadlock because of the continuity. They've managed to essentially give an explanation to everyone on why that is. And
it's brilliant.
And it was mentioned in very indirect way in there, and it just worked.
Yeah.
Sorry, Angelina, you're saying?
No, I mean,
I just wanted to say in the trailer that they have that little, maybe it's one of the trailers or maybe it's one of the promotional like ads that they put out there. They have that reference to, don't even get me started about Doctor Strange and that Spider-Man and
it was mentioned.
So there was more of that, you're saying, like, because I haven't seen the movie yet, so that's why I'm asking these questions. It's like they really went.
There's actually one, and this is a little spoiler, but it's not big. There is one moment where you can physically see all of the different Peters from all of the different universes across the screen, and they're showing graphics from old movies and stuff like that, essentially trying to create the link. And so it's very, very obvious that they're all the same, but they're all different. It's really beautiful. It's really brilliant. And so each one like has its own, you can't even see my hands, right? Each one has its own little graphic. Like you see clips from the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and then you see clips from the newer Spider-Mans, and then you see clips from, it's insane, but they're all running at the same time. And it's really like, it's really well thought out. It's really laid out. It was just a lot of information. It was very
like they've explained why some characters die, why certain faiths, certain destinies are for Spider-Man, why he dies even sometimes. It was very clever. Exactly.
But they also make a huge point. I mean, the basic premise of this movie is Miles Morales is and what we'll see in the next movie is he's trying to overcome his destiny. That's just all it is.
That's
He's trying to overcome like his destiny, and his destiny across all of the Spider-Mans, and that's why you see it laid out, is there are certain canon events that happen in every single Spider-Man, Peter Parker universe. It's all the same events, sort of, that are laid out amongst all Spider-Man.
So we're doing, again, full-on spoiler. Now it's like biggest spoiler alert.
I don't know if that's the biggest, right?
No, all good. But it's just throwing it out there that like we're going very deep now. So
I think
carry
it's
on.
a very broad thing. Nobody knows really what's going on.
What's going on?
We've been talking about this for long enough now that if somebody's watching and they've been watching this long, I mean, eventually we'll get to some spoilers. But I did read somewhere, I forget which article, but recently, I think for one of the promotional tours that the studios do, Avi Arad, who is like the head of Sony, like he's one of the senior executives at Sony, and he's been involved with like Marvel stuff at Sony for decades. He mentioned that they're definitely in the future working their way to like a live action Miles Morales, whether it's a solo movie or some other kind of collaboration, like he crossover or something. And the way you guys are describing this movie, again, for somebody who hasn't, I actually will admit it, I still haven't seen the first one either. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't go see like the midnight screening yesterday, because I was tied up with work, and I was like, let me just go watch it. But then I'm like, but I haven't seen the first one. Like I know the gist of it though, but like I was like, I just want to watch the first one before I go see the second.
I would recommend that based off of someone who did not do that.
Yeah, you should.
There's like a lot of room for sort of like,
because it works on its own, but at the same time, I think it does fill up a lot of gaps. Like a lot of those moments when you feel that, hey, this is too much, I don't need to know anything about this character, or it's too late. It was more like, hey, like I was in the first one, so it serves the fans as well, which is nice. They weren't trying to just attract the new audience.
And I have a question. I just kind of I know the movie. It's got what I looked at Rotten Tomatoes right now. It says like 97% or 95%. It went up. Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes says 95% for critics and 97 for audience. So and it's got over 240. It's got 242 critic reviews and over 2,500 audience. So those numbers are probably stabilizing at that level now. I mean, they may go up or down by 1%.
I feel like every time I've looked at the new stuff, it's going up. People really love this movie. The box office numbers have updated since last night when I checked. The movie was only projected to make 100 million by the end. Now it's projected to make over 130.
Tell me this. I pulled up this article this morning when I was doing show notes, and it was like 40 million that it was pulling in for opening day, and then they were looking at
saw that one.
Maybe 100 million for the weekend, and then like by the time we start the show, they've updated it, and so now the projections are like over 113. So yeah, I mean, you were talking about the Little Mermaid earlier. It's gonna definitely get close to those. I forget the exact opening weekend number. Mermaid.
Also think that really, really shows the sort of devotion of the audience wanting to go see this movie, because as we said, there wasn't a lot of marketing for this movie. I don't even want to know how much of the Little Mermaid's budget went to marketing that movie. I saw marketing everywhere for that movie. And so
for the last 2 years as well.
Yeah, and so for the comparative like box office opening weekend day numbers, I'm like, clearly the Spider-Verse is turning out more than the Little Mermaid peeps.
I mean, look, here's the thing. The Spider, by the way, just as a little quick tidbit of statistics, if you look at the trilogy of Marvel, MCU Marvel has they've now done trilogies for like half a dozen of their heroes, including the latest one to complete a trilogy were Guardians, and then before that Ant-Man. They've done Captain America, Iron Man. But the highest grossing trilogy of movies in the MCU, I believe it belongs to like
Avengers,
Spider-Man.
Probably. Oh.
Well, not excluding the Avengers movies. I'm talking about individual heroes.
Right.
Obviously, Avengers are the highest grossing trilogy of. They actually got 4 of those, but the highest grossing trilogy of a superhero in the Marvel MCU is the Spider-Man, the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. And with the Spider-Verse now, I mean, the first movie made respectable money for like an animated film. This one, it could go north of 500 million as well. But looking ahead, Avi Arad said they might be, turning Miles Morales into a live-action character. Now, kind of following on that. I
hope not.
I want to ask you, because the third movie in this franchise is called Beyond the Spider-Verse. Now, the word beyond is what I'm hanging on to here, and I want to pose a question, and feel free to either of you guys want to answer that. Where do you think this franchise is headed once they do the 3 movies? Do you feel like they see a way to connect this to a live action franchise, whether they cross it over with Tom Holland, or they, I don't know, they bring Andrew Garfield back, they cross it over with the live action Venom? They did tease Venom at the end. Didn't they tease it? Or no. They teased at the end of the first Venom. They teased into the Spider-Verse in one of the post-credit scenes. Like it was something like, "Oh, meanwhile in another world," and it was some kind of a.
I'm just gonna call it. They'll probably find a way to transfer the cartoon Miles Morales into like the real world, and that's gonna be like a connection. So
I feel like they've already laid the grounds for that sort of integration based off of all the graphics that we saw. Like, you remember in one scene, you're seeing like movie clips. I feel like they're going to figure out a way to integrate it, whether I mean, it's a shame. Speculate without sharing too much, right? Because Beyond means so many things. And I think the Beyond refers to Miles like overcoming his like set destiny. But Beyond could mean Beyond could mean that he's into the real world, essentially. Like, I don't know. That could go so many different ways.
Well, I mean, we don't have to wait very long for the third movie to come out. It's only a year away, it seems like, right?
It's slated for March 2024. It's It's a big, quick turnaround.
Not even a year. Okay, so yeah, well, I mean, this movie, we can, I think, all agree, even for somebody who hasn't seen it, you know, if you go by the reviews, you go by the box office numbers, you go by the word of mouth, it's not, if not, it may not be the best movie that despite like for Spider-Man film of all time. I mean, there are people out there calling it the best superhero movie of all time, but then, you know, some people are considering it the best Spider-Man movie of all time. That all, I think the mileage will vary for everybody. Like clearly on our panel, like the two of you have very different views on this, which is fine. I think movies are subjective, so each person sort of has their own take on it. I personally am, from this conversation, only more and more so looking forward to seeing the movie. So hopefully I'll get a chance to see it really soon. I'm going to find the first one somewhere. It used to be on Netflix, but I'll have to find it. And then I'm going to go see the second one this week. And I'm looking forward to the experience because I do enjoy the animation style. I think that's what impressed me the most when I first saw the trailer.
I think you're going to pick the graphics. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I'm actually not looking forward to the live action that much, because I think part of what, you know, makes it great is the fact that they have the freedom of everything.
It's kind of like The Lion King. I still prefer the original, even though the new one looks like, you know, the best nature documentary you've ever seen. But it just, I don't know, like it doesn't have the same level of, like, it's not as emotive, you know? Like
I think if they do that, they're going to be limited in how many characters they pull over. Like, they're going to be limited in whether or not they bring Gwen over or whatever. Like, they're not going to be able to switch between the two if they do a full live action remake. Like, they're going to be limited on the amount of the sort of metaverse that they show, I think.
Well, with that, let's put a
metaverse again.
Metaverse.
We're gonna go off into the metaverse ourselves, and you should go to the regional and go watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and then go check out Across the Spider-Verse in theaters right now. Right now we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Bye.
Hi everybody, I am Angelina, and today we are going to be talking some Dungeons and Dragons. And no, I do not mean the tabletop game that I have never played in my life. I probably shouldn't have admitted that. We are talking Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, the 2023 reboot of the Dungeons and Dragons movie releases. So far, the reviews are holding up a whole lot better than they were for the original 3 series movies that were released between 2000 and 2012, featuring Justin Whalen, Marlon Wayans, and then a handful of other early 2000 actors. All of them were box office flops. They did not do well. This movie is holding up way better. We've got a 7.6 out of 10 on IMDb. We've got 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty good. And then we have a 72% on Metacritic, which, as Metacritics go, I would say this is pretty good. We have a star-studded cast, including Chris Pines, Michelle Rodriguez, we have Justice Smith, we also have Sophia Lillis, Daisy Head, and my personal favorite, Regé-Jean Page. Beautiful man. He even plays a beautiful character. Overall, I really like it. I would say my biggest holdup with this movie is that Chris Pine plays the same character that he always does. Truly, always. The script is quick, it is witty banter, it is funny. There were tons of giggles in the theater, although there weren't many people in the theater, I'm gonna be really honest with you. And overall, the feeling after you walk out of the movie is elation. It is joyful, it is fun, it is quippy, and that's really all I think it's meant to be. A lot of people have mentioned that it was like a true immersive experience as far as being like straight out of a D&D campaign. From what I know about the game, I would say that this is true. I've never played the game. Never did that. I don't know. It is what it is. Maybe I will now. Overall, the script is really good. The storyline works. There's no major plot holes. This movie, if you take it or leave it, is kind of just like fun. Go see it with your family. Go see it with your boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever. If you're really looking for a story, I don't know if this is it. It definitely set everything up for a second movie. I would also say that we are gonna be seeing a lot more of Regé-Jean Page. Overall, it's a good movie. It's not a great movie. It's giving that sort of Marvel quippy humor. It really reminds me of like Chris Pine in Star Trek. Truly, it was giving me massive Star Trek vibes.
Stop it!
It is beautiful coloring as far as the sets go. I like the overall shooting style. I like the scenes. I like the artistry that went into it. I like the voiceover work. And truly the script made me giggle. Like it was just, but it was there to make you giggle. It's not really there to make you think or anything like that. So Dungeons and Dragons, my ultimate rundown is go see the movie if you just want something fun and lighthearted and you don't want to have to like think too hard. Sometimes I don't always want to like think and be exhausted when I leave a movie. So this is perfect for that. It's perfect for a good family night out. I think we'll definitely be seeing more Dungeons and Dragons movies with this star-studded cast here soon. They've certainly set it up for that. And spoiler alert, nobody dies, which is kind of awesome. I feel like I always watch movies where people die. So this was a nice change of pace. Thanks everybody, have a good day.
All right, we are back. That was a fun review. I particularly always, every time that review I watch it, I love the reggae John
Reggae is on pace.
Yeah, yep. That was my best part. That was my favorite.
So good. Also, Mags, it's funny because this movie seems like the exact opposite of how you felt about Spider-Man. I was like, I walked out of this movie feeling like revived and like I was just like, wow, so happy. And you're like, after Spider-Man, I was like exhausted.
Mags, you're muted, by the way.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Such a mistake. No, I've heard great stuff about Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a huge fan of the tabletop, so I really need to check it out. And I really loved your review.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really enjoyed the movie. I was just like, cool. I think I volunteered to go see it because I love Reggae Jean Page.
Fair enough. It was also like a fair comment on I feel like everyone's dying recently in the movies, and that's actually a very fair point. There's just so much grotesque stuff happening on the screen. It's nice when they actually cool it down once in a while.
Yeah.
Anyway. Sorry, Dan. You know, it's just Dungeons and Dragons. What else girls can talk about?
Dungeons and Dragons. I loved it. It was good. Yeah, I actually one of my best friends, her partner was the marketing for all of Dungeons and Dragons, which is super cool. And they did in LA, they had this really cool billboard that was like a 3D billboard. So it had like, you remember the old school books that like popped up? What are those called? I don't even remember. You know what I'm talking about? You open the book and like it creates like a sort of like a 3D image in a way. It's like
you mean the Dungeon Master? Whoever is not playing, they have like
no, not even in D&D. I just mean like in general. Like you pop open they had children's books and it would like pop up some of the cardboard in order to make it 3D.
Yeah.
So they did that for like this huge billboard, but it was really cool. It was super cool here in LA.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
What is that called? Does anybody remember?
Like a 3D but I know exactly what you mean. They do those for
yeah,
kids and stuff, for toddlers
exactly.
especially.
You open the book and then like it projects outwards. I just don't remember what it's called.
Me,
I always used to destroy them when I was little. I would rip it apart.
So this was on a huge billboard, so nobody was doing that. But yeah, 1000%.
They're fragile.
The only thing I can think of is I just keep thinking of Stranger Things, the newest season, and how Dungeons and Dragons was like a big part of that.
I literally cannot wait for the next season. It's going to be the final season. You guys, I didn't watch Stranger Things for 4 years. And then immediately after the last season came out, I watched the whole season. When I was healing, because I had to take like 3.5 weeks off, I rewatched all of the seasons again. And I loved it as much the second time as I did the first time. It is probably my favorite show of all time.
Wow.
So.
Certainly, I think some people might say House of Cards still, or I guess at this point, people probably don't. My favorite show definitely is Stranger Things.
And Succession, which sadly ended.
Well, I mean, like on Netflix. Like, well,
on Netflix.
HBO, you know, there's so much.
It's like a completely different league. HBO is its own thing. Oh, Netflix.
You can count things on two hands and still have like what? Like I didn't count probably 10 more.
There was one character in House of Cards I always used to get compared to when I was in high school. Like my teachers would be like, "Oh my god, you look just like it." I'm like, "Huh? I've never seen the show. What?" I don't know who it was.
Well, speaking of shows that are ending or may not be starting or coming soon, Stranger Things is one of those shows that is currently not in production because of the WGA strike, and that's what we want to spend a little bit of time talking about. Not a ton of time. I know it's a more of a dour topic in the sense that it means talking about people not being able to work because of the strike and the fact that soon the DGA and SAG may also be striking. So it could be like a triple strike that if Hollywood isn't paralyzed enough from the WGA strike, you can only imagine what all three of those associations striking would do. So these unions, they basically negotiate with the producers, which includes executives and producers working for studios. So basically, the studios and these unions have to come to an agreement. And right now, they can't seem to be able to come to an agreement, over things like pay royalties for streaming content, where the writers feel like they haven't been paid enough for the shows, and not to mention there's other issues like mini writer rooms that are being taken advantage of, where you also have now a portion of the
AI.
episode TV shows used to have. Like back in the day, a full season of a show might be like 23 episodes. Now it's 13 episodes seems like the highest number you're going to get. A lot of shows on streaming services are 8 or 10 episodes. So writers can't make ends meet. And then AI, like you said, Mags, is another concern. So the writers right now are the ones
concerned for the future. I don't think AI is a concern for the right now or the reason for the strike.
But these deals usually are like they're not like a 1-year deal, right? So like they want to negotiate for a number of years.
So that's also like that's another big thing too. A lot of these writers are only being hired on. I mean, these writers used to be signed on for like 5 to 10 year deals. Now they're being signed on for one season of a show and then cut. Like
they're like freelancers. They're not like staff writers anymore.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
that's what I read, that they completely changed the way the pay is actually going to be carried on.
So the biggest issue
shocking.
is residual checks used to pay people's rent or their mortgage. Residual checks now either don't exist or you're getting a residual check for $2. Like they're not giving people stake in what they're writing, and they're completely taking advantage of writers. They're making them work crazy hours. I have really good friends in the writers' room on really popular comedy shows, and they are lucky if they stay on for one season. I have heard repeatedly from both of my friends that are writers on studio lots, it is a toxic environment to be in. It is not enough pay to do what I'm doing. It is way more work than what I am being paid for. And then there's no longevity in that, right? Like they write this show that goes on to air and is now on streaming services for the next 50 years until, Netflix is replaced by something else. And even then, like once the show goes out, people will have access to the show for the rest of like our time, right?
There was some issue with the credits as well, right? They also decided to change the way they credit them or something like that, right?
There was was it HBO or Netflix? And they said it was going to take Max. It was on Max.
HBO Max, Max. Sorry, yeah.
They changed something over when they made it from HBO to Max or something, and they said it was going to take a few weeks or months to fix it. I don't actually know what happened there, but boots on the ground here in LA, everyone is for it. But I have been seeing on like different Facebook forums, I have seen writers and really popular production workers like saying like, I'm out of work because of the strike, so I need to make money some other ways. Can I get a part-time job? And I'm seeing that like all over these Facebook groups here in LA.
That's sad.
It is.
It's really, like the center of Hollywood. I mean, center of filmmaking.
So I definitely think that COVID is not only the reason I would say the COVID was not only this sort of catapult for this situation, but it also, I think, has made it a little bit easier because so many of us were out of work during COVID that
Right.
it almost feels like it's not as hard this time around because at least they're fighting for something they want and they need. Everyone that I know of has voted in favor of the SAG strike. Everyone has given their authorization, as far as I know, because at the end of the day, like, I don't
Yeah,
want to go on.
they released joint statements and stuff. It's rare when actually like both competing agencies come together and agree on something. That's historic, right?
I mean, it's completely historic, and it is 1,000 a sense of like we're fighting for our future here. Like, as an actor, what people used to get paid as a series regular plus residuals used to set you up to at least buy a house. Now, even if I book a Netflix TV show, I'm not going to make any money until the second or the third season, enough to even pay my rent. Like, I have friends that are series regulars on studio lots that are still working catering jobs because they just aren't making enough money in order to pay all of their bills. And
I mean, it's an honest job, catering, but at the same time, it's a piss take especially if you get to see your shows on Netflix and you know that they're pulling numbers, you know they're making money, you know how much those streaming platforms are worth and how much money they have. Yeah, it's wow.
Yeah. And
But then since the last strike, I don't know if you remember, they actually did manage to do some changes and stuff. So I think that also gives them some fuel because the last strike actually did bring the changes they sort of demanded. When was this, Dan? Was it 2007, 8?
it was, yeah, I mean, this was years.
Yeah, it was basically 2007, and it lasted for like 6 months.
Right.
Right. It was, and that was long enough that basically people who bemoan the rise of reality TV should blame the writer's strike, because the writer's strike is what caused reality TV to really take off. Because obviously, for all that time that the writers weren't working, producers were like, where do we come up with content? And of course, back then the streaming really wasn't a thing. So basic cable needed TV shows, and that's when reality TV really took off. Now the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which is AMPTP, the studio side of things, basically, who negotiate with the WGA, they, the points that they're apart on seem to be the fact that they're like, well, we're paying you what we're paying you because it's not like we're making, like, our revenue model is different than it used to be. Because if you're a service provider, then you're not, most of the streaming service providers don't have advertisements, and basically
then it needs to be a bigger retainer up front. There needs to be some sort of, because they can argue this, right? But then you need to pay me more than this amount up front. Because the majority of an actor's and a writer's pay is in residuals on back end. Like, that is historically been it. So if we're no longer getting back end, but you're making all this money up front, you need to then shift the balance back. Because at the end of the day, Netflix, how much does the Netflix CEO make per year?
Probably hundreds of millions of dollars, including bonuses.
It's like, okay, well, I'm not getting a bonus, and I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing that. So, but here I am, like, adding and making you money. The model just has to shift. Like, overall, COVID really opened the door for this, because that's really when Netflix streaming took off, and that's really when all of these different streaming things took off. And COVID really caused a massive shift. And so I don't even know if necessarily the last strike is as relevant as we hope it would be, because I don't think the stakes are the same as they used to be, because the model overall was different pre-COVID. So it just opens up like a really, we're 34 days into the WGA strike, I think.
It's been a month. Yeah, like we're going well over a month strong.
It's been a month today.
Yeah. And I mean, even the streaming, I think this is finally also not just COVID. I think we are finally bringing to a head issues that have been simmering for way longer than even COVID. Like with the Netflix, with all the other streaming services, it seems to have been they've always sort of said, oh, well, we can't share the numbers, and they're like really all kind of very secretive
Can I
about
ask you
their
guys something? Because
data.
as I mentioned to you before this discussion that like Europe is not getting that much coverage about it. But what can you say to the European audience? Like how can this, because of course I feel so sorry for every single person in LA that's going through that and beyond. But how is that going to affect streaming services or I don't know, TV series, films and stuff? Like what are the dangers of the strike? Not the dangers, but what's the result or what can we see? What ripples sort of we can see? Yeah.
So Hollywood is like the lead in entertainment in the world, right? I mean, we have been the number one entertainment center for a very long time. Obviously, we're no longer like way above everyone else as far as that goes, but we are sort of still this pinnacle of entertainment. And the streaming services don't just affect the US. We have streaming services all over the place. Like in the UK, you have the UK sort of streaming. You have streaming services everywhere. And I can only imagine that companies like Netflix and Max and everything are doing not only this to the US writers and the US actors, they're doing it to everyone.
So do you think there might be strike happening here anytime soon? And like the European Netflix's headquarters, I don't know.
I think if this doesn't make enough headway, there will have to be, right? But I do think everyone is sort of sitting and waiting and watching. And I think the companies and the repercussions that the companies are going to have to deal with is going to be a sort of ripple effect across the world. And I think that's probably what writers in the UK and Europe and India are all waiting on, right? Is how much of it is already going to be affected by what the US is doing. And hopefully these companies wise up before it becomes a massive situation in other headquarters.
Yeah, I mean, and look, like people like David Zaslav, who's the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, he has said, on a couple of occasions, and he's not the only one, that they have enough content in the pipeline right now, enough stuff that's far enough along the production process and post-production are already complete, that they can weather a few months of this. I think where it becomes a problem is if this thing goes 6 months or longer than 6 months. I don't think we're gonna feel the effects of this at 6 months the way we felt the last time in 2007, because back then streaming wasn't as much of a thing. Here's what I mean. I mean from the consumer side. Like not from obviously the guilds, the people who are in the unions are feeling the pain from day one. I'm talking about like obviously like for us, where we're immediately seeing it as a consumer or as a viewer is late night shows are no longer on because those writers are striking. But as far as like a new show or a new movie, like it's gonna take maybe a few more months for that to really start to like, movies getting pushed back. Like Blade, for example, a Marvel movie, they stopped production on it. We talked about Stranger Things is not in production right now on its last season. So however, those things are still far enough away in terms of their release dates that right now we're like, okay, well, maybe they pick it up, they'll still be. But like what happened with COVID, when shows and movies, could not do work for months, we eventually saw that snowball into delays. And all of a sudden, like Top Gun Maverick comes out 3 years after it was supposed to come out, for example.
But boy, it was worth waiting.
Right, but I'm saying like we probably see the same thing happen here. Right. But like Angelina, that the longer this goes, it not only does it. I mean, the studio executives aren't going to feel the pain until like a couple of years down the road because they're going.
I can already tell you, as an actor here, theatrical auditions are at a standstill. Nobody's auditioning for new projects right now. Commercials are still rolling; those aren't nearly as affected as much. So I've been getting a lot of commercial auditions. I have not auditioned for a single theatrical thing, nor have any of my friends. So
what is everyone doing apart from striking? Do you think they can somehow use this time to, I don't know, take the spin onto things? I don't know, rethink their options? Can writers do anything else but write? I don't know. I'm always trying to find some silver lining. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's always a time for reflection, building on yourself, building on your materials, taking a moment. The entertainment industry is one of those things when you're on it, you're on, and there's no breaks. So I'm sure it's a little bit of a respite, but financially, you got to keep the ball rolling in one way or the other. I mean, again, I feel like seeing those Facebook group posts really proves in a way that like clearly not everyone is being taken care of in this time, and there's going to need to be a bend before it all breaks. It will massively affect the economy here in LA, which is already sort of at a weird tilt because of COVID. So we've already had President Biden, Barack Obama make comments about this strike because it affects the whole of California's economy, truly. But also with that being said, the silver lining is at the end, hopefully we come back stronger. I definitely think it's going to get worse before it gets better. I do think that SAG is going to join. I do think that WGA is going to strike. And I do think that there is going to be a massive full shutdown before it all reopens. But again, it's a fight worth fighting. And I'm really proud of everyone I've seen, talked to, read about. Everyone is on the same level. Like as entertainers here in LA in whatever form.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like we all are standing together on this. So I'm really proud of that.
It's rare, right? Because very often you must compete, between one another, and this time you guys stand together, united.
Well, I mean, it's for the greater good, right? Like we're all working towards the same goals here.
Yeah.
Even I think, like from the producer sides, I'm sure it's not like every because when something like this happens, people start to think, oh yeah, all the producers are out there are evil. I don't think like they're all. It's because both sides have their reasons for why they're not have been able to come to an agreement. But like when things like what you mentioned earlier, Max, which I have the article from Vox up on the screen, they talk about when Max launched, they basically lumped the directors and writers and everybody into creators in terms of when they gave credit for
that was it, yeah.
And then the implication being that all the greatest works of cinema and television of all time, like all the HBO stuff we were talking about earlier, that they're just content. That definitely pissed a lot of people off. And so that, I think,
It's
for
insane.
DGA, who has had a strike since 1987, they were already kind of going into negotiations with their pre-agreement offer not being accepted by the MPTP. But now, like, this thing happens, and that was like you mentioned, Max, inflection point where they sent out a strong statement saying that we're going to stand in solidarity with the WGA. We can't devalue the contributions of all these people working on these shows. You can't just say everybody's just a creator. I mean, if you're a writer, you're a writer. If you're a producer, if you're an executive producer, director.
I mean, everything starts from the story. This is like our one-on-one. That's our first class in a film school. Like, how can you even try to kind of diminish it and put it into this one category? Like,
well, I also think that that's really, I mean, that's at the end of the day, without us, you don't have a show. So it's sort of like putting the power back in all of these creatives' hands.
Yeah.
Well, I got to be honest. I mean, look, June 30th is the day when the DGA and the SAG agreements, the current agreements, run out. And so they're in the process of negotiations. There aren't any agreements in place. The pre-agreement offers weren't accepted. So we have talked about what's been going on recently and like some recent inflection points. It's been a month since the WGA strike started. Where is this going to go? I mean, could we end up seeing a triple strike? If that happens, then Hollywood would really be paralyzed, because right now it's already difficult. Like, nobody's willing to walk across picket lines, and rightfully so. But once you have all three guilds striking, that's only going to exacerbate things. And like recently, I think there was a set of awards that like an award show got canceled. I know, and the MTV TV awards went ahead.
The Tonys. I think the Tonys, the WGA was telling the people not to attend the Tonys, and so the Tonys were also not televised for the very first time.
And was it the Peabody Awards? Or there was another whole award show that they just recently released a statement saying that they just don't feel comfortable, or like they just don't think it's the right time to do an award show
Yeah.
going on. So it's gonna be something that's gonna go on for a while. I'm sure we will come back to this and touch upon this again in the future and update you. And of course, Angelina, you are out there in LA, so you can always give us some insight into what's going on around you, and obviously, with studios, I'm sure there's picket lines, not everywhere you go, but I'm sure you see them quite often.
Yeah.
And that's got to be hard too, because there's a day-to-day reality of people not working and not being able to pay their bills. That's a very serious thing. It's like everybody thinks that it's not going to happen to them, but when it does, it's like you lose a job. It's very difficult to it's a really difficult place to be psychologically, that you don't know where your next paycheck's going to come from and how you're going to pay that bill that's about to be coming due. So we feel bad for everybody. Obviously, we are in support of hopefully finding a resolution so everybody can get back to work and the writers can get their due as they should, because they are one of the most important parts of the creative process. And hopefully the DGA and SAG can come to an agreement too, so that more people are not out of a job soon. But yeah, we will come back to this topic in the future. Right now, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back. We'll be talking about Transformers: Rise of the Beast that comes out next weekend. We'll be back talking about it next week, reviewing it. But right now, we'll talk about what the initial reactions are saying about the movie. So we'll be right back after this break.
Hey, Maloney. Heard about the last case. And I'm sorry, man. It's a damn shame.
It would be fine if it didn't come from Frank. Gosh, I can't stand that guy. Do you know how humiliating it is to lose a case and then for someone to roast you with a dad joke?
I wouldn't know. Does he do that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it sucks. That's all I have to say about that.
I strongly object.
What a cock.
Oh, you were just there in the courtroom, right?
Oh, yeah.
Did you check out Maloney's baloney? Oh, yeah.
Ah, I'm gonna combust. That's so...
Enjoy your sandwich.
What's happening?
He did it! The perfect roast.
It's beautiful.
We are not worthy.
I'm changing careers.
Oh, Roland.
Check out our mortuary cosmetology degrees online
do
with
love
Coursera.
Oh,
Sorry, I think I cut away from that a little too early. But basically, if you guys want to check that out and so much more, that's episode 3 of Rolan, Late Night with Rolan Underground, and that's the cold open. So you don't have to wait very long to see it. You click on the episode; it's the very first bit, and it's just the kind of creativity you can expect from those guys.
we're big fans. Honestly, I've never. It takes a lot to keep my partner entertained, and it gets him every time. Like, he loves Rolan Underground. He's the biggest fan. I'm actually tempted to ask Roland to send us an autograph or something like that. Like, get a little prezi, because that guy.
Roland would be so honored.
Oh, honestly, we're the biggest fan. Every time the episode comes out, we're like, okay, let's do it. And yeah, it's biggest laughter. So guys, make sure to check it out. And it's not because it's our colleague, but this stuff is genuinely really funny. It's a really good show.
It is, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, hey, like it's on our YouTube channel, Also Curious. If you don't know
Yeah.
where to find us, youtube.com/Also Curious. If you're watching us on Facebook, Twitch, or Twitter, it's on the YouTube channel. You can also, I believe, go on our Facebook page. We put it everywhere. It's I think they also have their own Instagram account in this, so they're always posting some fun tidbits of their adventures. And they'll have a new episode coming out in a few weeks' time. We're just at the start of June, so in a couple of weeks you'll have episode 4. So right now you have 3 episodes to check out, and each of those episodes is about as unique as it can get. Like there's 3 very different adventures. My favorite is the one for the first episode, but Roland's grandparents. I think like that one.
You're gonna make a mess. Yeah. See,
no,
I'm
it's okay,
quoting
Roland.
it. Like, I'm so bad.
Yeah, you should get something from an autograph. Like we'll do like a whole segment where Roland's on the show and you're here, and then we'll just like do like you could show the autograph shirt or something.
I mean, last time we reviewed a film together, I tried not to like act like a crazy fan, but I was like, I didn't know how to tell him. You have no idea how much we love this show. It's just like it's a cringe, dark humor, and that is like you just can't go wrong with that. So yeah. Well done, us, I suppose. Well done, Also Curious and Rolan.
Yeah.
So it's great fun.
I mean, hey, we got Girls Gone Geek is coming out soon, a new show. Max and Catriona are going to be on that one, so we're looking forward to that too, of course. But yeah, Late Night with Roland Underground, check that out. That video essay from Andrew is also up on the channel right now, where he talks about voice acting. And he touches upon some of the things he talked about in the WGA strike, which not directly relating to the strike itself, but the trends of the industry in general. And, we of course want to promote that. It's a great video essay. He dives into how voice work has changed over time, and he's been doing fantastic of late as well. So with that, let's kind of move on to the next topic. We want to wrap up our show today by talking about Transformers Rise of the Beasts, which is the newest Transformers movie, which, if I am correct, is also the 7th Transformers movie, because there were 5 Michael Bay movies. Bumblebee that came out a few years ago, right before the pandemic, and now we've got Transformers Rise of the Beasts, which is basically a prequel to the Michael Bay movies, but like not a sequel, direct sequel movie.
Breaking out.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now you're back.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It seems like my internet is struggling a little bit, but
you're a little fuzzy.
What? Can you guys hear me? Am I coming in clear?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good now.
Yeah. So as I was saying, this Transformers movie takes place in the 90s. It's a sequel technically to the Bumblebee film, but it's a prequel to all the Michael Bay Transformers movies. And so yeah, it takes place in the 90s. You have like the 90s cars, the 90s clothes and everything. Anthony Ramos is in the movie. He's like the main human lead. Of course, you've got the Beast, who I remember watching the 90s animated show Beast Wars, which was terribly animated, but show like one of my favorite things at the time. And this is
what a lot of a lot of fans are very excited about this, that they picked up on that and they spinning it. Like after reading some of the comments underneath the trailer, like you could really feel the buzz for it. And speaking of voice actors, but like Peter Cullen, right? 81, and he's coming back as Optimus Prime again.
This guy is
years old.
Yeah. It's like James Earl Jones, right? Like they were like, oh, new Star Wars movies, like doesn't matter. We're gonna recast everybody, or like do new people. Like his voice of Darth Vader, even for the Obi-Wan show, I believe James Earl Jones didn't he voice the I'm like, okay.
The Darth Vader, but it actually touches upon something that Angelina mentioned earlier about the longevity of the actors. Voice acting can actually solve that issue, because look at this guy. He's 81, but his voice is still the same.
Yeah.
And,
voice actors definitely have a longer life with characters, which is really important. And it's also, it creates a sense of continuity and familiarity. Like, even though you can't see the face, you will remember the the sort of sound of their voice. So
Yeah.
that's always a big thing, right? When a new voice actor steps into a really old role, it's not always
Yeah.
met with a lot of love, even though you can't see the difference.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Right.
So it's always really incredible when these voice actors are down to, voice the characters for so long. It's great.
Yeah. Like what I got to see the trailer last night,
Mhm.
and without even like paying too much attention, I heard Optimus Prime and I knew that was the same actor.
He
That
has
was
such a
like
great voice.
yeah, iconic. He's Optimus Prime to me.
Exactly.
Forever and ever.
His voice sounds like home.
His like when he does
Comicbook?
those like monologues at the end of the bits, like where he goes like, to my creators
You're
out there,
breaking
something like
their
that.
done.
Like, don't come.
You have to say that
Is
whole
my
thing
voice
again.
just not doing okay?
No, it's the connection.
okay.
But
Yeah.
it was staggering. I have no idea what you said.
No, not even kind of.
No, I was saying like the bit that he does, that Optimus Prime usually does at the end of those Transformers movies, is like my favorite part of the whole thing. Where it's like, like
He always opens the
like,
movies and closes them. Yeah.
yeah, like those. I'm like, he's got that voice. Like speaking of voice
Yeah.
acting, right? Like, I love it.
Like
Actually,
Morgan Freeman's voice, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just sets the setting and
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm gonna be
Anyway.
sad when he does retire, though. Like that's gonna make me sad. When Optimus Prime is no longer Optimus Prime, they find a new Optimus Prime.
Any guesses?
Interesting.
Who can they cast? Who has the voice?
I have no idea. They're probably gonna try to have to voice match him, like
Mm.
as much as possible.
Well, with AI, they can probably just generate.
We
his
have
voice.
technology for that. Yeah. No, actually, it solves the problem.
I was like, oh.
So, but going back to the trailer, Dan, so you mentioned they're doing this huge nostalgia, obviously nod to
Yeah.
fans.
These
Everyone's
characters-
excited. It has crazy amounts of views too, right?
Mm-hmm. It
The
picked up like
trailer.
over 1 million or something. It's definitely
22. Wow.
yeah. It's a movie that I think it knows that this franchise in need of some timely nostalgia, but at the same time quality. And so I'm glad that when you look at these first reactions, like Jermaine Lucier, who said that it's right up there with the first Babe, meaning like the original Transformers movie
Oh,
that
wow.
did, and Bumblebee, which I think if you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, for example, those two are the highest rated Transformers movies. I personally like most of the Transformers movies. I think other than maybe the fifth one, the other four to me were like all good, but like obviously they varied. In fact, probably one of my favorite ones is the first one with Mark Wahlberg. What was it? The one with the Age of Extinction, I think it was, or like that might have been the last one, but the one before that.
Was it the one
no,
with
it was
Linkin? I remember Linkin Park doing the soundtrack.
Oh yes! Oh my god!
It was such a great song.
Like I'm that person. Like for every moment that people are like, cause like I know that movies have product placements and stuff. So like there was like in that Mark
Left
Wahlberg
and right.
Age of Extinction,
They
well, like
weren't
they
even shy or careful about it.
Yeah.
They were just, that film.
crash in Chicago or something, and then like they run through some like Budweiser truck, and then
Yeah.
there's like hundreds of Budweiser like bottles like just spilled everywhere, and Mark Wahlberg gets out of the car or something, and he just like pops one open on a car door, and he drinks one and throws it like and he just throws an insult at some random dude. I'm like,
So,
I'm
for
all
the
for that, 'cause, like that's just fun. Like I enjoy that stuff, but most people like knock on the movies for that. I'm like, but dude, it made $1 billion. There's clearly a lot of people who can see it. I don't know. Go ahead.
It
Well,
was
okay.
well done.
So for people like me that, maybe loved the first one or two Michael Bay movies, but I hated the third and I haven't seen one since. Which ones were your favorite? Which one should I watch before I go see this new one? I'm actually kind of excited it's a prequel because then I feel like I can go watch Bumblebee and watch this one and not have to like touch the other, two of the four that I don't like.
I would say watch Bumblebee.
Okay.
Right? Did you say you already saw Bumblebee or no?
So I haven't seen Bumblebee. The last I saw the third Michael Bay, the third of like the original before they.
Was that Dark of the Moon, the one where they had like a whole war in Chicago?
I really don't remember. It was like the last one that I know had Shia LaBeouf in it, and
yeah.
Rose
It did
is
not
the
have
only-
Megan Fox in it. Megan Fox wasn't in that one. It was.
I mean,
No.
I haven't seen any of them beyond. I mean, Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox. That's the only one
So
I've
they
seen.
were only in the first two. The third one replaced Megan Fox, and I didn't
So
like it.
what
Yeah.
happened there? Could you remind me?
So
Oh.
I think there was drama with Megan Fox and Michael Bay, and so they recast essentially her character, and they tried to
Fair.
come up
Wasn't-
with some like
they didn't
weird
recast
story.
it. It was a different character entirely. It was. I think it was like Rosie
but
Huntington.
It was
Whiteley.
even
She was
her.
up and
her
coming.
role was replaced.
Different role. But I would say if you want to watch like any of these movies before going to see the new one, watch Bumblebee, in which I think John Cena was great. And then Haley Steinfeld was the lead. She was
I
fantastic.
actually like her, yeah.
She's
So-
fantastic in Spider-Man, by the way. She
She
does
is?
the voice of the Gwen, right?
Yeah.
So
Gwen Stacy, yeah.
she's really up there. Yeah.
So I would say go watch Bumblebee because that's like story-wise it comes before this one. So it will give you. I mean, it's more focused on Bumblebee specifically, as the title would imply, but it's honestly one of the better movies for this franchise, and it's going to give you a good ground level in knowledge of where this movie's going, and not directly because the story of this movie doesn't quite connect to the other one, but you do get an introduction to Bumblebee, and it's very heartfelt. Then I would watch you said you already seen the original Michael Bay movie, so if you want to go back and rewatch that gives you some level of like context into like, oh, that's what Optimus Prime looks like, which I'm sure you know what Optimus
I
Prime
know
looks like.
who Optimus
But
Prime is. What?
what like maybe
What's
some
wrong
of
with the cartoons?
So it
I
gives
mean-
you a nice introduction because now you've got the two movies that kind of sit on each side of this one, story-wise. If you want to watch any of the ones after that, I would personally say the third of those movies is a good one. Dark of the Moon, I believe.
A third
the
of the
one where-
ones is the ruined
The
it
one
all.
without. No, I know, but like it's honestly probably one of the best ones in terms of the action and stuff. I personally like the fourth one, Age of Extinction, where Mark Wahlberg's character comes in because Mark Wahlberg just adds entertainment value to whatever he is in. So
Yeah.
even though the script wasn't the greatest, and the story, the movie's long. It's very long. Every time I try to watch that Age of Extinction, I start to like roll my eyes in the third act because the third act is so long and so heavy that I can't
Also,
keep
the
up.
fact that you speak of the movie in terms of acts just tells me how long it is. Like, that's insane.
It is. But like, look, the new one, if you look at his reactions, like Brandon Davis, who I believe works for like comicbook.com, and he's one of those main big websites, he liked it. I mean, and we've seen some of the other reactions. It looks like this is really pulling those heartstrings for people who watched the Transformers shows in the 90s and the 80s, the animated stuff.
I mean, clearly me and Angelina are not even the target audience, and it still managed to like tickle our interest in some way, because I think the trailer is well done. It actually gives enough, and
the trailer didn't
It's
quite
good.
hit me the same way. Like I think the trailers for me have been underwhelming, but I honestly
I enjoyed the Bumblebee appearance, like the last 2 seconds of the trailer. I thought it was really nice, and
it's fun. It has its moments. I'm just saying I've seen way better trailers this year. So
yeah, of course, no, in the grand scale of things. But if you hear Transformers franchise, another one, your expectations are kind of low. I would have skipped it. I wouldn't have clicked on it on YouTube if it was.
I mean,
suggested
I'm
for
also
me.
a fan of like practical gunpowder explosions that Michael Bay loves, because I'm like, they just
Right.
look cool on camera. So I
Yeah.
just like, I think the Transformers movies without Michael Bay don't quite have the same touch of all that practical mayhem that he likes to do. But again, like, or as some people like to call it, Bayham. So I miss the Bayham, but outside of that, yeah, no,
You've used that term before. I don't know when, but oh
like,
my god, you have.
we were discussing the ambulance movie that Michael Bay made last year.
Yes, the
Yeah.
Bayham. Yep, that was it. I was like, I've heard that before. My
That's
god.
the thing. Not
Memories.
Baywalk, not Mayhem. It's Bayham. Yeah.
And on that note,
On that note, I think we have reached the conclusion of this show. I think before I start making any more references that are not very timely or fun. All right, so it's been fun. This show has been fun. We're back after 6 months. We did it very differently than we used to. Hopefully you guys had fun with it. Of course, we're going to be watching Transformers: Rise of the Beast, and we'll be talking about it next week. We'll probably be talking about other stuff too. Let's see what happens. Maybe we'll discuss The Flash or whichever movie's coming out the week after next week. I think The Flash
So
is
exciting.
the week, or it's I have to look at the calendar again.
What are you guys? What are you looking forward to the most? Like top 2 movies.
Mission Impossible 7.
Mm-hmm.
And
for me,
oh
it
God,
has to be Oppenheimer.
I mean, Oppenheimer is up there, but I'm really, really interested in The Flash. Like I would put Oppenheimer and Barbie like on the same level, which is ironic because they both come out the same weekend. But yeah, I'm looking forward to all of those.
Yeah, Oppenheimer and Barbie, I'd say. I'm just interested, and it's great to go.
I'm excited about Barbie. Because I think it's going to be utterly hilarious. I need to see these little icons come to life.
Yeah.
Needless to say, we'll cover it.
But like, remember the new trailer? They're like, "Hey, they're dancing," and then she's like, "Did any of you guys think about like dying or something like that?" And just red thing that just comes out of nowhere. But yeah, all right, guys. Well, that's it for the show. Let's wrap this thing up. We'll be back again next week. We'll be talking about Transformers and so much more after that. And yeah, until then, it's been also curious. Stay curious, guys.
Have a good one.
Bye, guys.